Hello again. So hopefully by this point you've created your own structure chart for your program. What we're going to do is have a bit of a closer look at it and then actually try and create the very first bits of Python which we'll need from this structure chart. So let's have a look. So we've got the top level. Essentially each one of these blocks will be a function. I know technically for your GCSE a subroutine is either a function or a procedure. A function returns a value, a procedure doesn't. However, never in the actual real world of programming and jobs does that make a huge amount of difference. Yes, you may know that, oh yeah, this function is returning whatever. The .sort function isn't a function, it's a procedure because it sorts the list that you pass to it. However, in terms of talking and explaining things, it tends to all be fairly interchangeable. So yes, know the definitions for your GCSE, be able to regurgitate it onto an exam paper. However, if I say function when it's a procedure or vice versa, I apologize. That's the way it goes. Okay, so first function is our top one. Traditionally, here's my Python program. Traditionally, that's going to be your main function. So def main, and I'm just going to write pass. What does pass do? Nothing. Quite literally nothing. However, this program will not crash. That program will crash because it says, hang on, there's nothing in the main function. That's not right. So when I create a new function and I've not immediately got code which will go into it, I just put pass in it. Same with if statements. If you decide that, oh yeah, if value equals true, then I need to do something, otherwise I need to do something else. Then you can go back and actually write in the data. So I'll be writing pass in a lot. Okay, now we've got the display menu function. Yes, we can just write display menu. I use camel case. Some people will say that you should be using underscores for function names and camel case for variables, but I tend to keep it as camel case for a lot of things. And just pass. Now we need to look a bit closer on this, because at the moment we're just displaying menu, we're just saying display it. What we've got to think about is parameters and return values. Okay, that sounds more scary than it actually is. In order to display the menu, does the main program need to give it any information? When it's been told to display the menu, will it return any information? If you've done anything on functions, you'll know that a function is self-contained. It has local variables. It will take some information in, it will do something, and it will send it back. It doesn't want to be altering variables from here, there, or everywhere in a program. I tend to think of it as a person. If you have one person and their task is to display the menu, you'll tell them to go away, do their job, display the menu. They'll then come back, and do they give you anything? Did you need to give them anything when they went? Do they need to give you anything when you come back? Now with display menu, you can just say, yep, go for it. You know the menu display, just display it. So there's going to be no values which is passing. However, it will be returning something. So what we're going to do is just have a little arrow going back up, and we're going to have a lot smaller font than that. And what we're returning is the option. There we go. So now we can go back to our program, and there will be nothing in the brackets because we're not passing any parameters. However, we will be returning the option which is selected. Now, so it doesn't cause any errors, I'm just going to comment that out for now. And we know when we're writing this function that it will need to return an option. We know that our main will need to call display menu, and when it does, it will get a value back. So that is actually some working code. We've got the first bit of code actually working. Yes, we haven't got it doing anything, but we've got the structure which we can then populate. Given this branch is now complete, I'd be tempted to write that and get it so the program, you run it, it will display the menu. You may even go as far as if the user enters quit, then it quits. If it enters anything else, then it will just print you've entered whatever. That's as far as I'd go right now, but you can do that now or later. Okay, so enter RLE. Now when your main program tells it to do that, it's not going to give it any information. It's just going to say, oh yeah, the user's then chosen enter RLE, go do it. So this doesn't need any information coming back. Once it's finished, it's just going to say, yep, I'm done. It doesn't need to give any answer back to our main program. It's all fairly self-contained, so we don't need anything on here. We do need the function enter RLE. Oops. And at some point we'll have main calling that function. Okay, enter RLE. What will that actually do? Well, that's going to do two different things. It's going to get RLE from user, and it's going to decompress the RLE. So def get RLE from user. And yes, your program will be different, but it's the idea and the principles which we're trying to replicate. There we go. Okay, so now we need to have a look at this. Enter RLE. It's going to be asking the user to how many lines it needs of RLE. I want it to then pass that number into get RLE from user, and then get RLE from user will pass back the RLE. Decompress will take that RLE which that passed back, and then it will return the decompressed RLE. So it is passing so what's going into it? Number of lines. Okay, and what's coming out of it? Well, presumably the actual RLE which the user has entered. Okay, so the get RLE is passing in the number of lines and it's returning the RLE. The decode RLE is taking in the RLE, then it's returning the ASCII. So hopefully that makes sense in itself. The enter RLE function will ask the user how many lines they want to enter of RLE. It will pass that number into the get RLE from user function. The RLE from user function will just go through that number of lines and get the data from the user, probably return it all as a list of strings. The enter RLE function will then take whatever was returned, that RLE, and pass it to decompress RLE, which will take it from RLE into normal ASCII, and then it will return the ASCII itself. Then enter RLE can, I believe, is print that ASCII. Okay, this decompress from RLE function itself may be something which is a bit tricky, but I believe that's one of the key parts of the program. If it needs to be broken down further later on, then so be it, but at the moment I think that's a nice enough chunk on its own. Okay, so we're just going to convert this one into Python, and then you'll be on your own. So we got enter RLE, get RLE from user, decompress RLE. When we call get RLE from user, we'll need to pass in number of lines. So that will need to take num of lines, and when it's finished, we're expecting it to return our it will return RLE. There we go. Sorry, always also confused. So it will return a variable which contains the RLE. What that is, don't quite know yet. But that function, that's actually reasonable code so far. It will then call decompress RLE, and it will pass in RLE. So decompress RLE needs to be accepting RLE, expecting it to come in. It will then be returning ASCII. That's gone blue. That means you can't use that as a variable. It's a reserved word. I think it's a function. Okay, so that is then getting the ASCII text back, and then chances are the next line will just be print ASCII text, and that will be done. So already this program is not, the tricky parts aren't done yet. However, it is building the structure, and that's what we're trying to achieve at this stage. We're building the structure of the program, so then you can then solve each chunk individually. Because wouldn't it be a lot easier to write this program called ASCII art if there was a function called display menu, a function called enter RLE, function called display ASCII art? And there can be, you just need to create it. Yes, get file contents may be something which you don't yet know how to do. However, if you aren't writing an entire program, all you're doing is writing a single function called get file contents, that should be something which you can achieve. It may take work, it may take the internet, it may take resources, it may take trial and error, but it should be something you can then achieve. When you are doing that, yes, I've got everything all in one nice file. However, when we're doing decompress RLE, what I would recommend, you know what this RLE should be. If you're unsure, start of the line, you'll just print RLE. So you know roughly what should be passed into this function. You should know from your design. Are you expecting, if we go up here and just comment that line out, if we're just developing this line on its own, RLE might be a list of things such as that. So it may be that your function may be expecting that as a valid input, and you know what it should return. It should return that and then 4 B's. So because we know that, what we can do is we can create a new file. Zoom in a bit. And all that file is the function which you're working on. And the rest of the program, all it's doing is using that function. All it's doing, decompress RLE with RLE. The result is that print the result. Now this function, this program on its own is a really simple program. All it's doing is decompressing that data and returning what it equates to. We've got the sample data, what's coming in, and we're printing the results. That's it. We don't need to worry about all this other stuff. All we're worried about is this one function. Once you get this program working on its own, you can copy and paste the code which you got working from here straight into there, and then it's working. You don't need to touch it, providing you've tested it properly. You tried all your different tests and you made sure it works soundly. Then it will work when it's plugged into this big program. That is one of the joys of functions. They're so reusable. So build your structure, but then break out each bit which isn't obvious. For the display menu, yeah, sure, it's a few print statements and an input statement. You may just be able to do that on its own. If not, write a new program which is just display menu. Have it so it's got no arguments and it returns a number which is the option which is selected. That is it. That's the entire program. If you run the program and it displays a menu and says which option do you want, and you type in and then it says you chose option whatever, that is a success. You then copy the code in and it's working. This structure is about stitching them all together, because it's a lot easier to write enter RLE function when you know you've got a working get RLE from user function and a working decompress RLE function. You can then just stitch it together using those functions, and you know that they work in the same way you know len works, in the same way you know that input works, in the same way you know print works. So that's the steps which you need to be going through. That's the process which will help you build your program. Now yes, I appreciate I've been talking about an RLE project, however the steps are the same. It's exactly the same as for my noughts and crosses program. You create a main function, you then create the display board, take turns and check win functions. You then pass display board a board and it displays it. Sorted, onto the next one. So you break it down into individual parts. We created a function called alternate player, and all it does is it takes a value and it flips it. We wrote that as a program on its own. We were then able to just copy and paste it into this program, and that box is done. It's a lot easier to write take turn when these functions already exist. Take turn is easy if you've got a function called alternate player, get move, and add to board. All it is a function call. A function call equals a variable, so move equals get move, add to board, move. That is your entire take turn program. A lot easier when these exist. Similarly with this, enter RLE function is a lot easier when these two functions already exist. So breaking it down into these functions is key. This is the easiest way to get a program working. If you're just trying to write the whole program in one go, I will struggle. And I've been programming for 20 years. So break it down into functions, try it in a structure chart. These little arrows show which way data is moving. If you had somebody who you'd employ just to decompress RLE, what would you need to give them for them to do their job? Well, the RLE, they need to decompress. What would you expect for them to give you back once they've finished? Well, the ASCII, the actual decompressed text. Do you care about what they're doing with any other data in that process? Not at all. All you care about is what's going in, what's coming out. So I hope that provides some insight on how to get started and how to go about writing your project. And hopefully from that you can get started with designing and writing a little bit of Python. Best of luck.